Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Pyramid Sports Network in our new interview series where we are interviewing current and former professional athletes. And today we are joined by Riley Delgado, who is a former Atlanta Braves farmhand and the brother, funny enough, of Casey Delgado, who was interviewed a few days ago. Riley, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So, first, I want to begin by having Riley just give us a little bit of a breakdown on who you are, where you're from, your background in baseball, and kind of the steps in your journey that led you to playing professionally.
So I'll start off with I have three older brothers. We grew up in Miami, played baseball high school in Miami, Miami Palmetto. Then I went and played at Columbia State Community College in Tennessee, and then after my 2 years there, I played at Middle Tennessee State for the remaining 2 years of my eligibility, and then I got drafted in the ninth round to the Atlanta Braves, where I spent about 6, 7 years in the minor league system, getting up to Double A, and eventually just kind of hanging them up and trying to start a family. But that's just a little background. I mean, I'm an infielder. I played third, short, second, and actually I'm kind of undersized, but I actually played 1 week in high A at first base. But that's just kind of how things unfolded.
Yeah, so I think you as you said, you mentioned you have three older brothers, and I think growing up in Miami, it's such a prominently baseball city and area of the country, and it must have been a very special place to grow up, having been in a baseball family. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up with three older brothers and how they affected you and your journey through baseball?
So it's actually pretty amazing being the youngest of four brothers, or three brothers, four total. But it was pretty cool. I mean, everything they did, I would always look up to them. And something you may not know, I was home. We were all homeschooled growing up, so we would finish our work really quick in the mornings and go out and play. And in Miami,
Nice.
you're ready to play year round. So there was no off season for us. It was just go, go, go. We had a pretty good backyard, so we would just hours on end just getting after in the backyard. But it was just amazing. I really do miss. I live in Tennessee now. I do miss Miami, and just the warm weather year round. But just growing up with my brothers, watching them, I think it gave me an advantage over a lot of players that didn't have someone to watch. I had multiple brothers to watch, learn from, try to mimic, and just good examples of how to play the game.
Yeah, and as we had interviewed Casey a few days ago, Casey was a pitcher in the Mets system for a handful of years and really made a career for himself. And growing up, were there a lot of live at bat situations where you're hitting off Casey?
So there's a gap, there's an age gap. So when he was in high school, I don't even think I was in middle school.
Okay.
So growing up, I mean, we would mess around with like not really a baseball, like a cloth ball.
Mhm.
We would do certain things and goof around and stuff. I didn't actually get some real ABs against him until I was in college or later on in my career. I was able to face him, and it was amazing because I watched him growing up, watched him pitch so many innings, and I was like, what is it like standing in the box against him? But it was competitive. It was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, that's all just a really cool aspect of your guys' story. It's cool when you can see a group of brothers, and all in the same family having that same passion for just such an incredible game. So after you graduate from Miami Palmetto, you head up to Columbia State in Columbia, Tennessee, which is a junior college, and there you win the Gold Glove in 2015. You're named the National Defensive Player of the Year for junior colleges. You hit 370 with 25 RBIs as a sophomore, 343 with 43 RBIs as a freshman. And really, that seems to be when your career takes off. Coming out of Miami Palmetto, was Columbia State one of the only schools that was looking at you that took the shot on you, or were there others?
So two of the three of my brothers played baseball after high school, and Casey is the second oldest. He went to Columbia State, and then the one below him, above me, he went to Columbia State as well. Casey went to Austin P. My brother Bones went to Middle Tennessee State. So I didn't really have many options, if any options, to be
Yeah.
honest. So it was either Columbia State or go to Miami-Dade and just get an education, maybe walk on. So I was like, well, you know what? Like, I might as well. Like, what would it hurt, you know? And so, yeah, I followed in their footsteps, and just kind of it kind of helped knowing what to expect, because I know things progress, and Mike Korn was the head coach at the time. Um, it was just, I mean, I learned so much from him. It was just a great experience, and so glad I was able to go to Columbia State for those 2 years.
So you mentioned the other option potentially out of high school is to go to Miami-Dade, go to school, and kind of have that be the path you chose. Was there a point in time where you felt that your baseball career would be more than just playing your years in college and going professionally, or was there always kind of that part of your mind that wanted to potentially play professionally?
I always wanted to play professionally, but I'm going to be honest. I'm 5'9", so I'm not some big, shortstop. I played shortstop at the time, and I kind of hit on this. So I played with my brother. His name was Bone. Dustin's his real name, but we call him Bones. So he's 2 years older than me, and he played short. My freshman year, I played third, and then my sophomore year, he was still at short, and I played second. So I spent 2 years next to him on one side, and then the next year on the other one. I couldn't beat him out. I tried.
Yeah.
I couldn't beat him out. It was great. I mean, it was just amazing. He was a great example to for me to look up to. But yeah. So kind of getting to the question here, I always wanted to play professionally, but reality kind of seemed like it was a stretch. I think you got to be realistic in baseball, and you got to know who you are. And I know I was competitive. I did the best I could every day. And I just felt like, man, if no schools are looking at me now, like, what am I going to do? So it definitely felt like a kind of a far-fetched dream, to play professionally. Just trying to, when I went to Columbia State, I was just like, well, let's do this and see what happens, see what God has in store for me. So,
Yeah, that's great. And that's a fun tidbit that you were able to play with Bones also at or at Columbia State, and you were able to share middle infield with him. What was that relationship like up the middle? I feel like that would be one where a double play would be pretty automatic every time there's a routine ground ball.
it was amazing. And honestly, I may have misspoke. I played in high school with him. He went to Columbia State. I was still in high school. And then once he graduated, it was just, we were 2 years apart. But,
Okay.
anyways, um, it was amazing. Like, he was my best friend growing up. He's still my best friend. But we just knew each other. We knew what we were thinking. Um, I always called him my twin, even though there's 2 years
Yeah.
gap. We read each other so well. So you think about big leaguers, and just for example, Acuna and Albies, they seem like brothers, even though one's an infielder, one's an outfielder.
Mm.
But we just we just knew what the other brother was trying to do, and how to help him, or he helped me. But it was amazing. I through all my years of playing, there was nothing that came even close to that.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And I think it's really cool having that pipeline of the you and Casey and Bones all having gone to Columbia State, because I feel, especially for you as the youngest out of all of them, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's, like you said, there's this level of familiarity with a lot of the things going on there and the coaching staff, and I'm sure that helped you in your transition from high school ball to college ball.
Oh, no doubt. And I will say this: Columbia State, Mike Korn, he was very tough. Great, knows the game inside and out. But yeah, I mean, just the knowing kind of what to expect, knowing it's going to be the hardest thing I probably will ever do. Besides, now that I have a baby, raising a kid, but it was so hard physically, mentally, because in junior college you don't have any hour restrictions for practice, so you'd be there right after school until after dark. So yeah, I mean, it was great. That really did change my career, because yeah, I was growing as a young man, but learning the game, learning the details of how to play and how to carry yourself and how to ultimately be consistent at what you're doing really just changed the way I view baseball and the way I carried myself.
And while at Columbia State, as I mentioned earlier, you hit 370 as a sophomore and 343 as a freshman. I was wondering what went into your approach in, well, we'll start approach wise at Columbia State in junior college as a younger player. What was your approach like in coming into a competitive junior college conference that has some big time schools in it?
I was really just trying to keep my feet wet. And it's a big jump, regardless of what step, any step you make at that next level, it does apply some pressure. But it was really just like, you know, I see other guys doing this. I can figure it out. So it was a lot of learning who I am, learning what are pitchers trying to do, how to how to beat them at their game, staying within myself. It was all those little things that you just have to buy into. And I wasn't a big power guy. Even to the end of my career, I wasn't a big power guy. So just figuring out who I was and not trying to be somebody else was ultimately my biggest part of my success throughout my career.
Yeah, and it led you to, as I said, an unbelievable batting average over the course of your 2 seasons there, which then led you to Middle Tennessee State. And as you'd mentioned before, you had an older brother who also transferred out of Columbia State to Middle Tennessee State. Was that kind of your idea going into it, that that could be the potential progression?
Um, Not really. I wasn't when I was at Columbia State. I didn't talk to anyone the first year. My second year through the fall, I had a couple people interested, like a Carson Newman and UAH, Huntsville, Alabama, and um, a couple schools, but nothing crazy. So I went through the fall, and then as I started to progress in my sophomore season at a Columbia State, it kind of became a reality that I can actually play at the next level, and then ultimately at D1 level. So no, and then I remember in the fall, this is kind of a unique story. I remember Scott Hall was the hitting coach at MTSU, and I remember him calling me in the fall or in the spring when I started to get some interest from people. He was like, "Hey, listen, we don't really have room for infielders. We're looking for a big bat and a big arm. So I'm sorry, but it is what it is, kind of thing." And it kind of hit hard because I've loved to follow my brother's footsteps, Bones, because he was an infielder. We were very similar. Um, so I was like, I want, like, it'd be cool to go there and do what he did, not just copy him, but see if I can maybe one up him a little. But then things happen, and I don't know how or another, but they found room for me. Um, and so things opened up, and I'm very grateful for that because Bones graduated, and then I came in, and he was actually the student assistant. So I got to spend a full year uh, under his coaching, and it was just amazing. I couldn't ask for a better experience.
Yeah, that sounds great. And you go to MTSU and you are in your junior season, you're a semifinalist for the Brooke Wallace Award, which is the country's best shortstop. That year you put together a 388 average, which was top 20 in the country. Your senior year, in your draft year, you finished your career seventh all time in career batting average at MTSU, hitting 369 over the course of 2 seasons. And this success is what was carried over from your days at Columbia State. But what do you think the biggest differences were going from a junior college to a competitive Division I school? Was it, say, the arms? Was it more of the bats, or was it kind of the speed of the game?
A little bit of everything. Players got faster, but pitching definitely threw harder and more consistent. Arms were more around the zone. They had better off speed. They can command it. So each level, it seemed like everyone was throwing harder. They had more command, more off speed, different options. They would throw it in any count. So that, to me, that was the big difference. And then on the defensive side, yeah, I mean they would hit it harder, and they'd be faster. So it's just that next step of adapting to the ability of who you're playing against. So no doubt that they got more consistent for sure.
And do you think there was a transition period? Was it more so in the fall, or did it take you a few games in the spring to really get your feet wet?
I remember my fall not being anything to, hang my hat on. Uh, and I don't know if it was their games, you're playing against each other, but they're not, like
They're
in
not
the spring, you're,
games. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I know. I always felt the same way when you see your same buddy 8 times in the fall, you get after the probably the fourth or fifth time. It's
yeah. Like you're competing the same, but I think there's a heightened awareness when you're playing against other teams. Um, so yeah, I mean, my fall, and maybe I'm selling it short, but I don't remember being like, wow, like I've earned the spot. I mean, defensively, I was there, I was doing fine, but offensively, it was like, man, like these arms are pretty good. Every single arm, they're getting better for sure.
and so over the course of the 2 seasons there, you guys you had some individual success, and the team performed pretty well. And I was wondering if there were any moments that you remember kind of as those Kodak moments of your college career where, you made a big play or maybe the team won a game that was just, really electric.
So I have a funny story and an amazing story. We played Vandy my junior year at home, and they play on turf, and our field's not turf. But I remember we were playing Vandy. It's always when we play Tennessee Vandy, it's always a big deal for us. Mid-major MTSU, so we're all giving it our all, doing what we can. And I remember we were beating Vandy at home, and we were like, "Are we gonna do this?" And they no offense to Vandy, they made some mistakes. There were some hops in there that on turf it'd be no problem. They'd field it, make the play, move on. But I remember um, we ended up winning against Vandy, and we were just like, did we seriously? And at the time, they were, I want to say top 10, something like that. But it's Vandy. It's big. They've been good for so long. So that was really just an amazing experience. And then the one that's kind of funny. I think we were playing like UTSA or Old Dominion or something, and this was my junior year, and I was just having a year where it seemed like so many things were going my way. And I remember I was in like on the on deck circle, and I was like talking to my brother real quick before I went there, and I was like, hey, like I haven't gotten hit in a while, like hit by a pitch.
Mm.
It'd be kind of cool. And at the time, I'm mentally locked in. Like I don't care if they hit me. Like I'll be fine. Sure enough, first pitch, I get drilled in the arm, and I'm fired up. I'm yelling, I'm let's go. And my coach and teammates are like, what is wrong with him? He just got hit by it,
Right.
and it was amazing. My brother was just cracking up.
Yeah, just the
That
timing. Yeah, that's hilarious.
that summed up my year. Who calls getting hit by a pin? And I wasn't leaning, I was just standing there, threw a
Right.
heater, drilled me.
Sometimes when you're hot, you're hot.
Yeah, yeah.
So your senior year, it leads you. You go 260th overall to the Braves in the ninth round in 2017. You turn in over the course of your 7 seasons a 279 career hitter. Your greatest year was in high A, split between high A in Florida and low A with the Rome Braves. I hit 315, 122 games, 56 RBIs. 2018 Braves organizational All-Star. So you put together a really solid career and kind of backpacking off of the transition that was high school to college, JUCO to D1. What was the transition like from a legit mid-major to now playing pro ball?
So it was tough because you're around so many new people. Like there was kind of through my career, I went to where I had an idea what was going on. Columbia State, my brothers went there, MTSU, my other brother went there, Bones went there. So that was really the first time in my kind of career where I was like, oh, like you got to go figure it out for yourself. So it was a big growing experience. And I remember I think this is a pretty interesting story. I remember when I got drafted, um, I was working a camp leading up to that, and helping maybe 8, 9, 10, maybe 11-year-old kids. And I remember I ended up getting hit, and it was a week before the draft. And I filled out some questionnaires, so I thought it was a possibility. But honestly, I was just like, you know what, it is what it is. It's in God's hands. If He wants it to happen, it'll happen. And I ended up having surgery a week before the draft, thinking, it's over. There goes my chances. Who's going to draft someone that can't really stand up? And I remember we were in our living room in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and we were watching the rounds kind of go by, and we're like, it's cool. It'd be cool to see my name, but I kind of doubt it. And I remember I got a text from Dustin Evans, and he was in the Braves organization. He was like, "Hey, we're going to pick you in the 10th round." I was like, "All right, let's do this thing." And the 9th round comes around, not expecting to hear my name, and I got called. And I remember there was such emotions. For one, I was still hurt, so I couldn't even stand up. I couldn't even jump around.
Yeah,
That's how I
yeah.
wanted to react. But I had to just sit there and be like, "Wow, this is amazing." But so that whole experience went into Danville. So I didn't play for the first really month. It turned into be a month and a half. So there was a big gap. I mean, up until that point in my career, I didn't have that gap where I couldn't do anything. I couldn't practice at all. So that was a big transition. Let alone facing pro ball arms in rookie ball, it was that gap of not playing that kind of made it tough for me. And I wasn't. We had a $2 million second baseman, a $4 million shortstop in the Braves organization. So here's the senior sign. I was going to get the scraps, and it is what it is. But it was a very tough transition to get into pro ball.
Yeah, so you I should have led with the draft. I skipped over that one. That's pretty crazy that the surgery was right before and just the timing. So what happened exactly?
So this whole story, it still blows my mind. But so they were playing a game, kids were playing a game, and it was me and Coach Donnelly, Tim Donnelly. He's a college coach, coach of Marshall, WKU. I remember he was throwing to a team, and then I would throw to a team, the other team. And the team I was throwing to was hitting, and nothing against him, but his team was like, "Hey, I want to face Riley," and I was like, "Okay, like,
Yeah.
you know." And I kid you not, like no one hit a ball like that the whole day, but he hit a ball right where you don't want to be hit as a guy, and it was the worst pain of my life. It had to be like I would assume pregnancy, like there, it was just so bad.
Oh my gosh.
But so I ended up having surgery. I wouldn't wish that on anybody for sure. But yeah, that's kind of a glimpse at what happened.
Yeah. Oh man. No, that is, yeah, that sounds just the worst possible luck right after we had mentioned the run of luck leading up to calling the hit
Right.
by pitch
Yeah.
and it's feeling like everything's going your way. So moving on, we can get away from that. But so the one of my favorite things to ask a lot of the pro guys that I interview is kind of their welcome to pro ball moment, like the welcome to the league moment. Did you have one of those?
Kind of, and it may be different for me in this situation. I remember it was my rookie ball season, so kind of leading up to that, I didn't play for the whole month and a half. So I was trying to one remember how to hit, remember how to play the game, and then two adjust to these arms we're facing. And I remember I hit with a lot of rhythm. I had a lot of movement in my stance, and I remember my first game, you know, got blown up. Just can't, they were
Mm.
throwing so hard, and it was just so tough. But I ended up getting to hit that game, and I was like, wow, like I just got my first professional hit. This is amazing. And I remember the next day. I went to the cage, and the hitting coach was doing a breaking ball machine. And I personally, I don't like machines. Period. Like fastball, breaking ball, I wasn't about it. I'd rather see front toss or arm, tee, call it a day. everyone's different. That was just my preference. And I remember he was kind of just saying, "Hey, if we're doing machine and you're over here, like you need to hit machine." And I remember just kind of walking away, being like, "Hey, I don't like the machine, so I'll do my tea, and then I'll just head into the locker room." And it kind of gave me a bitter taste in my mouth, but it helped me realize not everyone's out to help me. Not everyone's in my corner. People have opinions and thoughts on what you need to do, and you can take it and run with it. And I try to learn from it, but not everything people say is to benefit you. Everyone wants to have their stamp on players. So if you did make it, they'd be like, "Oh, I helped them." So that was kind of my wake up call for pro ball.
Yeah, I think that goes off the old adage of it's a business, and there are, like you said, people trying to hang their hat on guys that make it. A lot of those guys in lower levels of professional baseball in the coaching staffs, I'm sure feel that way, similar to a scout, where if they're the one that finds the guy or helped him with the adjustment that kind of turned their career around, I'm sure that would really go a long way from them. But like on your side, I see exactly what you mean, where it's it's tough because you you have your way of doing things and it got you to where you were. So I understand and completely respect that you stuck up for yourself right there and kind of wanted to stay in your ways, because I think we had mentioned it before, is that baseball is so mental, and the smallest things in my experience can really trip you up. And kind of moving off of that, was there anyone who throughout your career was a really big help mentally? Was there someone who was kind of your support staff, or did you ever have an opportunity to talk to a mental coach or anything in that of that nature?
So the Braves did have mental coaches, and there were definitely tons of people that I could reach out to ask for help. But my brother was really he's the one that saw me play more games than really anyone. So whenever I was going through some tough ABs, I remember I would reach out to him. He'd say, try to simplify things. Hitting's really difficult, so sometimes when the game speeds up, you have to force yourself to slow it down. So I would always go to my brother. I know that it sounds kind of odd because it's like, wow, you're in the organization to get you the big leagues. They should know how to help you. But, they know they've seen me in some games, but they haven't seen me, all throughout my career. So he was really the one I relied on to help me through some of my tough games for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that all makes a ton of sense. Was moving further, just kind of throughout your career in pro ball and college too, you mentioned you had games against Vanderbilt and games against Tennessee. Who were some of those players that you look back on playing that you're like, I remember playing that guy, or he was a guy that made it to the league now, who you saw at a younger age or saw in the minor leagues when they were before they were who they are today?
There's a few. Honeywell for Walter State, pitcher. I think he played for the Rays, I want to believe. Um, he was good. He was at Walter State. He threw hard. He did his thing. He was one. CJ Chatham, from FAU, shortstop. He played. I don't know if he got up to the big leagues. There was definitely some few guys from Vandy. Um, there's definitely a pitcher for the Diamondbacks. There was a few guys in college that really stood out, and I remember them when they got up either to the big leagues or into the minors.
Did you ever have any instances of big league rehab coming down? And I've heard a lot of the stories of, like I know when Scherzer goes down a few years ago, he was buying all the spreads, and everybody was saying he would really take time out of his day to talk to some of the minor leaguers. Did you ever have any of those experiences?
I did. I remember Dansby came down, and this was 2018 when I was in Rome, and he came down, and I had an off day that day. I was playing short. He's a shortstop. I wasn't butthurt or anything. He
Yeah.
should But
Right,
but,
right.
but I remember he had a good. I think he gives Olive Garden or something like
Nice.
that. Gosman, Kevin Gosman, we were playing Bradenton 2019. He gave us a good spread. NCRT, same thing. The kind of cool one against me for the Mets, I actually got to play against David Wright, um,
That's cool.
Jay Bruce, and the cool thing was um, David Wright, or no, I'm sorry, Jay Bruce got a hit. I was playing short, and David Wright was up after Jay Bruce. They're rehabbing.
That's crazy.
And how cool would this be? There's one out. Let's turn it to a play. Sure enough, David Wright hits a ground ball to me. We roll it up. It was just like amazing. We're getting two big leaguers out. It's just
Right.
you can't ask for something better than that.
No, that's so cool. No, they I remember looking also in your minor league career, you played over in you played with the Mississippi Braves for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that was we in college we had played a few games down there. There's Belhaven University in Jackson. There the Mississippi Braves Stadium is now Belhaven's home field, so we played a few games down there. And it was fun. We had we always had a good run with Belhaven, but we played them in our regional last year, and they kind of took it to us. They beat us like it was like 14-1 or something in the first game of the regional. And then fast forward to today, I was looking at the hot streaks thing in D3 baseball, and Belhaven baseball is like 13-0 to start the year. They're the number 4 in the country. So I was just thinking about that. That was funny that I'd also played there. But all right, man. Well, that's pretty much all I got right now. I think I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and give some of your stories. It's always a pleasure to hear about all the different journeys that people are going through. And I think it's really cool to see, especially with your story, how much of an impact your brothers had on your career. Because before anything, I think everybody can relate to the fact that family is the most important thing in most people's lives. And that's just an experience that not many people can say they had.
Yeah, no doubt. And being the youngest, being able to get drafted, that was just amazing because, being the youngest, you're like, wow, hopefully it happens. But I was the only one in our family to get drafted. So, um, you know, it was cool. I couldn't ask for a better childhood growing up or, better brothers that I have.
Yeah, no, that's all great. But thank you again, man. I appreciate you coming on. Now, yeah, we will come back with another episode sometime next week. We're going to try and get another guest on and continue this interview series. But Riley, I really appreciate it again, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.